Nicolas Champeaux, Gilles Porte, thank you very much for being with us today. We're talking about your film that's here in Cannes, out of competition, a special screening, a documentary that's called The State Against Mandela and the Others. Now, this film is based on the Rivonia trials that took place in 1963-1964 in South Africa and that put Mandela really in the spotlight. But you're talking mainly in your film about the others. Can you tell us why?
Well, when I met Nicolas, I know nothing about this trial. And you know, like the majority of the people, I think Mandela was alone, in fact. But when I spoke to him with Nicolas explained me, no, he wasn't alone. And there was a trial with eight persons, and they spent 26 years in jail. So I discovered that Mandela is, that these people would decide to put Mandela at the head of the movement to make faces to represent the ANC movement, and so we decided to. And I asked Nicolas if there are lives, and he told me that they are free. They are free, and there is 2 lawyers. I met Nicolas in the middle of November 2016, and we decided to go. The 2 of us with 2 technicians in South Africa in January 2017, 2 months after. And well, I think it's important to know that Mandela is a collective.
Yeah, I think people also generally don't really know that there were white people involved in the struggle, that there were Indian people involved in the struggle, and I think you're right. We talk about the others in the film, and in fact, at some point, our idea was to call the film simply the others. And they chose Mandela because they needed someone to represent the movement, so they chose him because he was a lawyer, because he was an excellent and articulate orator, and. But Walter Sisulu was very important, and I think it's Andrew Mlangeni, the accused number 10 in the trial, who says that Nelson Mandela would never do anything without consulting Walter Sisulu first. So I think it's important to explain this to people, specifically this year, which marks the 100th anniversary of Nelson Mandela.
Yes, I just want to say something more. You know, I'm French. I don't know the story very well of South. I didn't know before the story of South Africa very well. But what is funny, when we were in South Africa with Nicolas, we organized meeting in high school between them and between a student. But the students in South Africa know nothing. They didn't know there is white people in trial. No. So I think it's important to say that even in South Africa.
So this is a French origin film that is going to have a particular importance in South Africa, but also outside of South Africa.
I think you know, when I saw the movie, I think it's like a universal movie. You know, of course, this film speaks about apartheid, but it speaks engagement. Continue engagement, le mot.
Commitment.
Yes, it speaks about commitment. You know, at the end of the movie, you have to interroge yourself. What are you doing, you? Of course. Nicolas and I, we don't, you know, put our life, you know, like them. But we have to think about commitment, and that's, for me, that's more a film about commitment than apartheid. Even if the beginning is apartheid, of course.
Nick, would you like to add something?
I think it's important for people in South Africa to perhaps know a little bit more about the trial, what was at stake, and what were the consequences of the trial. But I think it speaks to a wider audience, like Gilles was saying, about, you know, commitment, you know, the courage of people who decided to say no and to resist, putting their lives at risk in the process, and making sacrifices. And yeah, you're kind of like, well, what would I have done? I'm in Kathrada. There's one thing which did not make it into the film. His fiancée told us that she needed to have an abortion, for instance. In 1962, they were an illegal couple because he was Indian and she was white, so they would have had to leave the country to have the baby. And Ahmed Kathra said, well, I can't do that. I need to stay in the country because I'm too busy taking care of Nelson Mandela. I mean, I would have left the country, I think.
That's also very poignant. In the film, Sylvia Neames, Kathy Cartada's girlfriend at the time, who you're talking about, she was actually here for the screening in Cannes, which was something very poignant, as well as Andrew Mlengue. But she also says in the film how afterwards she was not able to have children.
Yeah, and that was very moving. In fact, the other night at the party after the screening in Cannes, Gilles told her, you know, Sylvia, you say you have no children, but you do have 2 kids now. You have Gilles and you have Nicolas. And when we went to visit her the first time in South Africa for the shoot, she did welcome us like her own children. She wanted to give us her Benin African 18th century masks because she has no family. She has a brother in Canada. She doesn't have any kids. She dedicated her life to the struggle. She spent 3 years in prison. Then she had to go into exile in Germany. And as she says in the film, that's life. But she chose the struggle and put the struggle first.
You know, yes, you have the big story, the big history, and you have the little stories.
That's really what your film is about.
And yes, and of course, the little stories, the human stories, are more interesting for us than the big stories, you know. And if we speak about cinema, because we are in Cannes, if we speak about Cabaret, you know the film Cabaret, that's Hitler, but that's the story of one woman. If you think about Une journée particulière from Ettore Scola, one particular day, with Sophia Loren and Massimo Mastroianni, that's the story of Mussolini, but the story of one couple. And you know, it's interesting for me. It's interesting to see how you have the big story of the world and the little story of the human. And for me and for Nicolas, I think so. Sylvia Neame, we don't know about Sylvia Neame before. We know a lot of things about
Winnie
Mandela, about the accused, about, you know, because they all made book and about Winnie Mandela, about the lawyers, but we know nothing about Sylvia Neame. We met Sylvia Neame, I think in December 2017. But for us now, Sylvia Neame is one of the main characters of the film. We begin the film with Sylvia Neame and we finish the film with Sylvia Neame. And what she told us in the film, it's very, very important.
Let's talk about how you actually made the film, put it together. There's something very special about it in that there's no visual trace of the Rivonia trials. It's sound only, and I think you're very lucky to have the sound, these recordings, and to be able to transcribe them into a digital format. You've also had to use animation sequences by an animator called Erd. And that is something that takes us really puts the faces on the accused, the lawyers, the presiding judge, and the prosecutor, which really pulls us right into the heart of the trial, almost as if we were there. And you're alternating that with these witness accounts, with the lives of the people who were not the main characters. I'm saying characters, because they come across almost as characters in the film. It's a very interesting experience in that way.
You know, I'm filmmaker, but I'm mostly a DOP. So I mostly work with pictures. And when Nicolas comes and explained me that there is sound archives, well, I think, how can we make pictures on this one? And Nicolas and I show me drawings, because there is one woman during the trial. She was the wife of the accused number 6. And she spent her time drawings during the trial. And he showed me, that's why in the film you have a woman drawings. I don't know if you remember. And I saw the drawings, and yes, even now, when you have a trial, you can't film a trial, but you can draw. So I present Nicolas, a man I know, I really appreciate his work. His name is Urde. And he spent his time working with sound, with jazz, with music, with word. And I present Nicolas Urde, and I said, well, I think perhaps it's interesting to try. And Oud worked with us 1 year ago. We spent 1 year working with him, and always work together. Oud, Nicolas, and I, and we speak and we speak and we speak, and we didn't know at first that we make drawings even without words. At the beginning, you have drawings, there is no words, there is music, there is no words. So it's a mix between drawings, music, interview, and pictures archives, as you saw, because I think there is some film we have to show the people which kind of film you have during the 60s in South Africa.
I think I like when you say that there are characters, because it's true that it's almost like a Hollywood movie. The bad guy is the prosecutor. He's your racist person, very aggressive. He has a lot of this despise for the accused. He calls them by he doesn't say Mr. Kathrada. He says Kathrada, but he says Mr. Goldberg, who's white. The accused, of course, are the heroes. The lawyers are the heroes. You have a traitor who betrays the movement. So these are almost cinema fiction characters. And Oud, he has a good sense of humor. He's a serious guy, very talented guy, but he has a good sense of humor, and he wanted to play a little bit. That's why he for Mandela's for Mlangeni's jacket, he chose the jacket that Mlangeni is wearing during the film. Kathrada was in disguise when he was arrested. He was dressed and disguised as a Portuguese. He had a big mustache and sunglasses. So I thought, well, that'd be fun to keep him like that in the trial. Even when he presents Kathrada as a child, as a baby, he still has a mustache. So it's a serious documentary, but it's not a historical documentary. There's room for play, and animation allows that.
Just to add some words to say that when Nicolas and I decided to make this movie, we decided to make this movie in a very small team. Artisanal, I don't know the name in American. Artisanal.
Craftsman style.
So there is Nicolas, there is Oud, you have Aurélien, and you have also the editor, Alexandra Strauss. Yes, Alexandra Strauss was the main character in the crew. I don't know if you saw I'm Not Your Negro. She's edit I'm Not Your Negro. And we work like that with 5 or 6 person maximum, and that's the way to make this film. Because yesterday in Cannes you have Star Wars. Well, I think we have the stars, we have the war, but it's not the same film.
We're going to have to stop there. We wish you all the very best with your film, Gilles Porte and Nicolas Champeaux, The State Against Mandela and the Others, a key moment in the history of South Africa and the apartheid movement, and a key film here at Cannes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.